Now, we often hear and say that divine is in everybody, like we are parts and parcels of the Supreme. Then it bothers me that why people are evil. Why some people, if they are the same part of the Almighty, kill or rob or do evil to others.
I was joking with Sraddhalu that it's an easy question. Of course it's a joke. It goes right to the heart of, I think, a question that so many people have, you know. My wife, her grandparents were prisoners in Auschwitz. And her grandfather was an atheist because of his experience in Auschwitz. He said, if there's a God, how could that happen? How could that have happened? And it's such a poignant, common human question. How? Why? Why is it like this? You know, why is life like this? And there's kind of a philosophical answer, a cosmological answer. The divine implanted itself in the depths of ignorance and is climbing its way back up, and along the way there are counter-evolutionary forces pressing against the evolutionary ascent, and these forces intentionally create the experience of separation. And so people act as if they're separated from everyone else, and they act in competition, wherein I'm a separate being, I'm in competition, existential competition for scarce resources, and so I have to do whatever I can in order to survive. And that delusion, that fundamental delusion, confusion, causes all kinds of chaos. It causes people to act in ways that separate them from themselves and separate them from the rest of us, the collective, and act in ways that manifest division and separation. And a cosmological, philosophical answer can, the question is, what can we feel about that? What can we experience and hold about that? So that it's not just an intellectual comfort to calm the mind, but something that we actually feel and experience. So, when you see an act of violence, which seems like random violence in the US, there's these mass shooting events that are real, that happen. Can you hold that there's a person, a human person there, that has been separated from their own humanity, separated from their own heart, separated from the divine, their connection to the divine, and pulled into a state of isolation so extreme and so formidable that they would commit an act like that? And if we can hold that, then even in the face of such a horror, then we're holding something of the whole. We ourselves are not contributing to or participating in that separation, saying that person is other, and I don't, I withdraw myself from them. But we can hold them, and we can hold the experience in a divine embrace that overrides, or that, overrides isn't the word I'm looking for, that defies the darkness that they have embodied. It says no to the darkness that they have embodied. We say no, we stay in the light, we stay in the wholeness, and embrace them. But the question is poignant, and it's an answer to it that is embodied requires coming to a place where we can hold all of that in our consciousness. I don't know if there's something you want to add.
The point Matthew was making was that there's a gap between that which is divine within you and the personality which is you, and the two are so different, the gap is so great. This can do pretty much what it likes, and the divine presence within you is not yet strong enough to assert itself to restrain this, which is the whole point of evolution and yoga. That's one way of looking at it. We can also look at the question from a different way. It's not contradictory, it's just a different way of looking at it, that the whole universe is an expression of the divine freedom. And the nature of the divine freedom is utterly free, including the freedom to go against itself, including the freedom to go against its own evolutionary purpose. And so the part of the universe which plays out that freedom to go against its own purpose is what you call evil. But it's still divine, playing out the possibility of something which is contrary to its own purpose. And if the universe was not made to be utterly free, it would not be a true joy of the universe. If everything was restricted, you can't do bad, then where's the freedom? The point would be lost. So in that sense, you see this more as an expression of the extreme freedom, and the purpose of that also from the divine perspective is an aspect of the delight to oppose itself. And who bears the burden of it? The divine who is opposing is also the divine who is suffering, being in both, essentially. But all this is at a deeper level, at a more essential level, that you can appreciate this. On the surface level, where you are not in this experience, then you say, oh, I suffer, and where is the divinity? And then, of course, the solution is, if you can find the divine presence within yourself, at least you can reduce the warping and distortion in your own life, and then its effect on others. But these are two different ways you could look at it.
I see it in terms of evolution. Beings are born just after the animal phase, and the mind is not fully developed. And therefore, they are subject to the evil that is in the world. But the evil is also the divine. And going along with what Sraddhalu said, if the divine is truly divine, why can he only be perfect, immutable, eternal? If he wishes, he can be ignorant, he can be evil. It's all his play that we have to understand. And when we see someone who is, to our nature, evil, the very best thing we can do is invoke the divine presence towards that person.
Next question.
Just add a point to this after what Narad said. In that way, you can see how even evil, being essentially another aspect of the divine play, serves a purpose in hastening evolution. Because by the fact of the evil, you are forced to become strong, to defend, to fight, to overcome, and so on. So there is nothing, even in the worst evil, which is not used by the divine to accelerate evolution. And this is what we have to keep at the background to understand why it's allowed.
I have two simple questions to Sraddhalu. How do you define integral yoga in one sentence? And secondly, is this path only for the English-speaking community? Is there a user-friendly manual for the layman? So,
In what language?
excuse me?
You said not English speaking, then what language?
Any other language, say Hindi.
Why do you want a one-line definition of integral yoga?
Everything was in an English language, and we were told that, okay, read Aurobindo's work.
You wanted your first question was a one-line definition of integral yoga.
Because many people do not understand 4 or 5 sentences of definition.
I don't think they will do anything useful in life, much less yoga. Okay, so I don't know if the first question is really serious. It's just...
I think the point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we've heard a lot of over the last few days
Okay.
and as we asked, how many people are new to Aurobindo and the mother? And so this has been a lot, an overload. And so how to simplify it so that they have something they can take back practical. I think, I could be right.
Yes,
but I-
because I'm asking
Okay, so
on
you want not
my
definition,
own
but something
experience.
useful.
My husband is not in this path. He has been asking, can you say in simple sentence? So I've been at loss. So I'm putting my burden on you.
Okay. The integral yoga is intended to manifest the divine potential which is within us in our lives, and thus divinize life and lift it to its highest fulfillment, divine fulfillment. Broadly, that is the distinctive feature which separates it from all else. Okay? In terms of language, there are translations pretty much in all languages today. There's a dedicated website. I don't know if you know Narendra's website.
Yeah.
What is that called?
Incarnate Word.
No, the other one. There's translations. Anyone knows that?
Yes, Aurobindo, I think Aurobindo Mother and Mother.
No.
.in.
Okay, no. That's Narad's website. So there's a dedicated website which has a Google translation in all languages. I think you get some 30 languages. Pretty much all the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, with a machine translation. But separately, there are others which have done a proper human translation, including Hindi and all languages. You will find things. But yes, it's a problem that most people want a very simple application, simple practice, and one could, of course, look at some of the compilations which are a good starting point. But the problem is when the nature of the knowledge and the aim of the yoga itself is multifaceted and complex. You cannot simplify it beyond a point. You can simplify it looking at essential principles, but the nature of the yoga itself and the goal of it is a multifaceted goal. So you have to recognize the full scope of that goal. You may say, I will focus only on one aspect, and that's fine. But it would be not fair to reduce the whole thing to one simple formula like that.
Can I answer that? Your one-line question?
Yes, please.
For your husband. Okay? Yoga is union with the divine. Traditional yoga is union of the soul with the divine. Integral yoga is an integral union with the divine. Soul and nature. Meaning thereby, everything in us unites with the divine. Divine is the perfection we all need, want, aspire for, but have not. Okay, is that okay? The practical terms, one line of the yoga is to turn to the mother with an aspiration for the divine life. One line definition. In Hindi, English, Gujarati, all languages, the key word of the yoga is Ma. Even cats know it and cows know it. Okay? So you don't, that is the word which is there, but otherwise, that is of course one part of it. It's available in Hindi, translations, simple things, everything is there. One has to just check it out. Yeah? There are talks also, plenty of talks. In Hindi. Very खुद के हैं. बोलना ठीक नहीं लग रहा.
Do you tell your husband he is the divine?
Actually, I believe it. He doesn't come to any of the meets. Even if he comes to the temple with me, he doesn't come and meet God, see God. He waits downstairs. But for this is the first time he has come on his own volition for this. So I consider it as a divine blessings.
Where is he?
Because someone told that there will be no session, so he went to the room.
Did he attend the sessions? Did he enjoy them?
Oh, actually, I am surprised. He sat through all the sessions.
Perfect. So he has absorbed whatever he needs. Don't worry about it.
And for the first time, he was reading the book after going back, and he said that I read 4 pages. I didn't understand a single word. So,
Take some of the more introductory books, smaller, simple compilations. Get him hooked on something which he enjoys reading. Let that be a starting point.
You take this day as a celebratory day.
sure.
That he has first made the first big leap along with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a follow-up question to the first question that she asked. So, based on your answer, you said that evil is an expression of the divine. It's a free expression. So he could
It's
have also an expression. So when the earth becomes divine and everything is going to be different, right? So there'll be no evil, I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Yes.
So then it's going to restrict the freedom of expression
No.
of the divine?
No, the point Aurobindo makes is evil can continue as long as it serves a purpose. When it ceases to serve a purpose, it fades out on its own because it's pointless. It's as an example, when as children you had some child troubling you by, let's say, twisting your name and making you cry or feel bad. As long as you reacted, the children kept doing that. As you grew up, it didn't make any difference. They stopped being interested in doing it. They stopped it, right? Something like that. As long as evil can serve a purpose, well, it plays around. When it ceases to have any purpose, it can do what it likes and there's no one responding to it, no one affected by it, well, it just fades out. Doesn't mean everywhere in the universe, because the universe is still infinite. There will be other places where it might remain until it serves its own purpose.
We can say the same thing about war. When war is no longer necessary, it won't be there. Aurobindo Basu, who was one of my gurus to lead me to Mother, said that these local skirmishes will continue for a long time, just as the lower man will continue until he can rise up and become the new man in a new world. So we have to have a very wide vision of humanity and see that only a few are going to become supernatural at first. Others are going to get close. Mother speaks about this supernatural ship in which was all orange and the people were dressed in orange. Some of you know this story. And those who were ready got off the ship. Those who only had some orange in them had to stay back until they were ready and then they could go. And what does it matter if it takes a few births or a few hundred births? We'll be there. We'll all be there. We will all be supernatural one day.
So,
The same thing, it's very easy to understand the answer what you give, but when we see wrong thing happening in the masses, like the Kashmir fire, I couldn't stop crying for days. And you feel helpless. You feel like so helpless. What is your role in this life then? Just sit and watch and say it's a divine
It
place.
serves to provoke you to act.
But as you feel so small, like the masses are so big that you feel
But
like
you can start
can't do
making a
anything.
difference in your environment that such a thing will never happen here. You see?
I once wrote a poem and the first line was, I am so small, make me yet smaller still.
There's a value to the experience of helplessness. Because in the end, we're all helpless, and only she can do.
Yes.
And so to feel, to be overcome, to see something that is horrible and evokes a sense of repulsion and terror, and to feel, I want to do something, but I can't. I want to make it stop, but I can't. Bear the experience of helplessness is transformative. It swells your own heart. It's a movement of your heart reaching out in care and compassion. And often what happens is when people feel helpless, they act in a way that is separated from the divine. So they say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fix it, and they just create more problems and more separation and more division. The helplessness compels us to reach upward for her and to ask for her help and to connect with her. And there's no call that is not answered. The call and the answer are the same thing. It's two sides of the coin. So when we call to her, she answers every time. It's not actually, it's like physics. It's not possible for her to not answer. So the call of helplessness is important and valuable and helps the whole earth when you call it.
You will still act, but she will give you a higher knowledge on which to act rather than repeating the same mistakes.
But we must be patient. It may not happen in our sense of time, but in the mother's time.
So from this perspective, it is
Please raise hand and wait till your turn comes.
sorry.
My question is about, there is a lot of issues going around polarizing people based on class and religion, and we hear a lot about the mistreatment of different religions, people from different religions. I just want to know how the religious leaders in India are bringing unity, across religions, as well as, reaching out. And how is Narad and Aurobindo, what is their message for religious unity?
Can he ask that of you?
No, you can ask.
Can I answer?
No.
But first, there's two big things. One is about the evil part. Evil is a distortion of a reality. This is a paper. If I were to crush it, that's what is evil. To straighten it back. So it is restored back to its original purity. So you are asking in a new creation what will happen? It will be restored back. The distorting element will be gone and it will go back to its original truth, its original purity. As to the government of India and the mother solution, let's go beyond religions, and religions which are ready to go beyond religions will survive and evolve. And religions which are not ready to go beyond religious rites, rituals, and they are stuck in a warp of time 1500 years back, and they are still looking backward, they are going to collapse, whether we like it or not. So staying on the same ground, one cannot create interreligious harmony, because by its nature, it's reached its peak. So we have to see which are the religions which are ready to go beyond the last limits that religion could take them into a greater spiritual evolution. From what I have understood and read, I can say that it is Sanatana Dharma which has the potential to do so. And from whatever I have read of other religions, I don't see that they have the capacity and potential. If they had at one point of time, they have lost it. To evolve, because they are stuck in a point of time with maybe one book, maybe one. So it is, they have to evolve. It's by evolution that they can join one. At a mental level, by round table conference, it won't happen. So this is how the Mother and Aurobindo speak about going beyond religions into a spiritual evolution, and that's what we are discussing here. And if that can happen, wonderful. That's what
May I give you my chair?
No, please. I'm just enjoying. I like to be on the sides. 12th man in cricket.
I would like to hear the other people's inputs on this.
It's good enough as a reply. You don't need more. Do you? Is there something unanswered?
My understanding of all religions, in one way or another, are moving different paths to the same goal. And if that is so, I think all the religious leaders have a moral obligation to look for unity among religions. And we should not have any division. Everybody has got the right to follow their religion.
The thing is, your question has to do with other religious leaders. They all begin with the assumption that their religion is the only way. They will never make an effort to find harmony. The harmony can only come from a viewpoint that sees the truth or essential truth within each religion and brings them together. Sri Aurobindo has that. The deeper Sanatana Dharma has that. But the moment you come to an exclusivist viewpoint, they don't want it. They cannot do it. You will never find a solution there. And then it's a question of the common man evolving enough to not depend on such leaders, at which point the leaders are forced to change their position or they fade out into irrelevance. You see, for example, the Pope changes his position on so many issues after many centuries because society has moved so much farther that if he doesn't change his position, he becomes irrelevant. So they will never be the solution. Solution will be in people who outgrow these narrow viewpoints.
Next question.
Okay. Picking from what we just spoke, from aspiring from a human perspective in terms of divine life upon earth, is it fair to say it is us who will either delay or enhance this through our true real aspiration? By seeing all this evil, nobody wants to see this, but only thing that we do at times we ardently aspire for things to change and how we can help out by our own actions. Is that the thing that we could do right now at this point, especially across the group, the way things are? And then in continuation with the Sri Aurobindo says, something like this, divine will not work in void, but through instruments, we do these, something to that effect.
It sounds like what you're asking, and you can tell me if I'm hearing it correctly, is does my aspiration matter?
Or is that the only thing that matters at this point?
That's a different question. Is it the only thing that matters? That's a hard question. I don't know. I can tell you that your aspiration matters. Your aspiration is very important to the earth, to the mother, to humanity. I can tell you that 100%. It matters. It's a gift, it's a blessing.
If I understood right, you said your aspiration for those things to change.
Yes.
It's not enough. You have to act. You can't sit and pray that somebody else will become good. You can't sit and pray that the war out there will stop, because there are circumstances and causes which need to be changed. Certain limitations of human tendencies which need to be fought and be defeated. You have to start doing the action here. In yourself first, because you have certain elements which provoke the war there, but the same tendencies exist in you. On a smaller scale perhaps, start clearing that, changing yourself, but at the same time work in the domain given to you, that is the people under your influence, under your command, under your active, let's say, network, to begin to influence a change in society. This is absolutely essential. The aspiration should be for the right guidance and the right force and the right action. But not merely, oh, they should change, meanwhile I will sit and pray. That's not going to work ever. And it will help. Everything helps, but it's not enough.
Next question here.
Yes, my question is, as a parent, as an educator, when we were growing up, especially in India, it was very normal and natural to have spiritual awakening and awareness in the house as well as in the school. You know, parents, teachers, even neighbors were taking us all in a stride. and it very naturally came the way we thought, the way we included divinity in day-to-day life. Today's children, according to me and my experience, they do not have the same, opportunity. How can I, or every one of us, as educators, parents, and just general adults, bring this awareness in our future generation? How can we make sure that they get into the groove of, divine experience, and how can they be involved in some way where we are not touching upon any legal issues? I would be very bold to say that, because there are some words and some topics that today everywhere,
You said they don't have the same opportunity. Why?
For example, in India, as a teacher, if a child would come with an emotional problem, I could easily say every classroom would have a space for puja. There's some.
So what has changed? Why isn't it available now to
So
them?
we would very naturally say that, go and tell.
So why is that not available now? What has changed?
Here, it's difficult for
You said when you were children you had that.
Yes.
You don't have, the children today don't have. What has changed?
Probably it's not in practice anymore.
Several things have changed. First, you had lots of free time. They don't have free time. So what can you do? Give them free time. Second, society at that time had higher values. Today's society is already debased and getting worse. What can you do? Well, create within your space a higher standard of values. You have to push back. Otherwise, a sinking society will drag down the children. If you wait for society to educate them, they will only get the worst. You have to push back and lift and create at least islands where a higher standard, higher values are transmitted. You have to create a protective circle so that they are not exposed to perversion at an early stage. Even in the ashram school, when the ashram was begun, the school was begun in the ashram, there was no way to avoid cinema. Well, children wanted to see it. So the mother allowed cinema to be shown every Saturday in the playground. She would herself watch the movie, have portions edited out, which she thought unsuitable for children, sit with the children and watch it again, or later she had other people doing the editing, and later she withdrew, but they had the editing system going on. It was intended to protect while still allowing the benefit of the cinema. We don't do that. Television is not doing that. We have some of the worst things available on the internet just like that for free. Who is raising a voice to put that control? Censorship. There is an active censorship to prevent you from speaking your mind. But there's no censorship to stop ugliness to come into your children's mobile phones. And that shows you that the people who have the censorship priorities have them all wrong, and they have not your interest in mind. They want to pervert the children. You have to push back. It means a concerted action from the collective to take into task those who are these, let's say, gatekeepers. And if you don't, society is sinking rapidly in its values. So I don't have a simple answer for you personally, but as a collective, we should be able to push back, otherwise it's not going to change. But again, create little islands where you can, groups of parents if possible, and so on. Individual, collective, you have to get collective. This you can't do individually. You start individually, but combine, get into schools, or within your schools at least start this change, talk to parents, etc.
Question here.
Yeah, but the first, I'd just like to add a little bit to that, to your answer to you. This is, everything Sraddhalu said is necessary, but we must remember Mother's words, that to change anything in this world, we have to change ourselves first. So it's the change within you that will bring about change, but outside of you.
Thank you. And I think just we discussed aspiration, and then you mentioned about to act, and almost that goes with the rejection, right? So reject, and then in the end surrender, right? So how it says in the integral yoga. So how can we practice this or apply rejection? Is that when we feel that sensitivity that something is not right, we're just going to say, I reject that? That will work? Or how you practice rejection?
Where did you read that?
I think it's my compilation.
In the little book, The Mother?
Yes.
Sri Aurobindo gives a list of all the things to be rejected. Just look at that list. That's all you need.
I know, I understand, I can read, but how can I practice that? Is that when it comes, I'm just going to say, I reject that? Is that how it works?
Okay, so the first point is recognizing rejection is not something you begin with, it's the aspiration you begin with. When that is sufficiently clear and formed, then the things which are incompatible with the aspiration you reject. Rejection itself then has a first movement of separating from you that tendency. Let's say you find a rising tendency of anger within you. You say, I am angry, and you identify with the anger. The people who go to the doctor and say, I have an anger problem. My anger, the moment you say my anger, you've made it yours. But the first movement of rejection will be, it's not me. It's a tendency rising in me, but it's not me. If you can stabilize this point, then at some point you notice there's a part in you which is not angry, while another part is angry. You've made a first level of separation. You center yourself consciously in the part which is not disturbed. That's why the equality becomes the foundation in the practice of the integral yoga. Once you have that, as the anger rises, a center can remain unaffected. At some point then the clarity, calm, peace of the center can assert itself on the parts which are vulnerable to the anger and subdue the anger, soften it, snuff it out, eventually dissolve it, and the tendency itself is removed. So that would be the process of the rejection.
And then can we offer at the same time? Can we offer
Yes,
that?
of course. But again, what are you offering?
What I reject?
How do you do that? You can't give something unless you identify with it.
So if I don't identify with the moment that I reject, it's
You
just...
give yourself, which is free of the anger. That is a better way than identifying with the anger and say, I'm angry here, I give myself. That's not a very effective way. If you separate yourself and the anger is outside, you can say, here, take this part, or take this disturbance, or help me. Or the better way is rather, you see the problem of offering, you invoke the peace and let it suffuse into the part where the anger is there. That is a more effective way. Rather than dealing with the muck, you invoke the light and the water which washes the muck.
You know, we have a tendency to feel entitled to our emotions. And Sraddhalu is pointing out this my anger, I am angry. And when we start to make an effort to separate, to create some space, some distance, often there's a feeling like, no, I am justified in being angry. This thing happened to me. And that's the biggest place to identify and release the entitlement to the emotion. And if we can do that, then the space can grow. And then, you know, the first time you eat kale, maybe it's a little bitter. You don't like it. But the more you do it, the more eventually it's like, well, this actually kind of tastes good. You know, eventually the feeling of anger coming and saying, you know, seeing the anger as separate, it becomes less of a struggle. It becomes less of something that I have to give up or some kind of fight. It's like the feeling of goodness, of seeing something rise and not being identified with it, replaces the feeling of entitlement.
I feel that samatha is so essential in all of this. Equality, not to be affected by anything, to see all as the working out of a divine plan. And even in the darkness of people, that darkness too is going to evolve into light.
Last question.
Would you recommend any books for teenagers to stay on this path?
Lots.
Many.
I mean, teenagers abroad. I think teenagers abroad range 13 to 19 theoretically. That's very
13,
different.
yeah.
13, we're talking. And every teenager is different, right? So, I mean, you can, Sraddhalu has said before, find something that appeals. Find something that the person is uniquely connected to, because every unique being comes into this world with certain interests and certain, every soul has a unique point of connection with the divine. So it's a matter of finding where is that for this particular person, especially when they're young. Because if it's forced and contrived, then it's generally not going to work. My daughter is 13, and she loves Hanuman Chalisa. And so I don't go much farther than that. We read Hanuman Chalisa, like descriptions, and we read the Avadi and the English translation. We look at the Devanagari, and so it's just all exploration of Hanuman Chalisa, and we sing. So for her, I haven't, that's where we spend our time doing spiritual things, let's say, is around that, because ever since she was young, that was there. It was inspiring to her. So you have to kind of find that for that particular being, what's the thing, and then maybe it broadens out, but as a starting point. You may have more.
The special feature of teenagers' requirement is that they want it to be rational. Something which is not rational, they will discard, which is the reason why they discard all of your religious stuff and spiritual stuff, because it's not presented rationally. If you can approach it rationally, they will get hooked, because they're looking for something. I'll give an example. I had once been to a school, I was invited to a school in Bangalore. There had about 1,000 children, maybe 2,000, I don't remember now. And the theme I had selected was Science of Indian Rituals. And one after another, I took up various things, from basic namaste to why you do go around in circles, why you light a fire, why you do this puja in a clockwise way, etc. I took them up one by one and explained the rationale, either from a science point of view or an occult point of view or a spiritual point of view, but logically. So we had originally planned for 1 hour and then Q&A. The question and answer went on, 2 hours passed. Eventually the principal had to say, okay, we have to stop because we have other classes. Okay, that was great, they were very happy. A week later I got a call from the principal. Parents are calling us now. I said, oh my God, what did I do? He said, no, the parents are saying that earlier we had to teach the children what to do, and now the children are teaching us how to do it the right way. Because it caught, you see. So you have to tap rationally. What I will suggest is, instead of you deciding what will work for them, bring them to a place like this, let them see all the books, browse through, leave them alone for half an hour in the library, select what they want, and take several if needed. And starting with little compilations on various topics. But again, stuff which will be relevant to them as well as be rationally presented. Second point I'll make, today's children are very different. You're still thinking in terms of books. They're thinking in terms of either audio or video. So find the videos or audios which will hook them with topics or content presented in the way they require. So one of the things I had done long back, which is still kind of a classic now on the internet, it was this talk on money power, how it works. It was a talk given in IIT, so no, it was put up by IIT. It was given somewhere else. Anyway, a lot of children find that it hooks them because the examples given are so accessible, relevant, and on a topic which is relevant for them. You'll have to, if you can, make initial some selections which you feel work, send them a link and see how they respond. If it hooks them, they will follow through on their own and follow up with other things of that kind. So if you need to trigger it, find a few good things like this, See where it goes. You have to keep sending them little things and find what works. If you know their nature, it's easier.
I'll conclude this evening with a suggestion that since children are now so interested in cell phones and computers, there were many, many talks given by the mother to children in the ashram. And mother covered subject after subject. I think this is a good starting point.
If HP permits, I'd like to accept one more question, which was a question raised yesterday, which I want to take up. The question you had raised about people who say that Mother and Sri Aurobindo did not complete their work because they died. Okay? I want to put this in context because this is not often understood in the people who make these arguments. They think that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother tried to supramentalize and failed. Therefore, because they died, it's failure. No, that was not the case. Sri Aurobindo writes this very clearly in one of the letters. He says, if it was our own individual transformation, we would have done it long ago. The point of their work, and this is the nature of the avatar, that's why Sri Aurobindo and the Mother are the avatar. You see, if an individual does something, attains to something beyond humanity, disconnected from humanity, what have you done? You had a miracle, it passes with you, affects nothing. The avatar's job is not to perform a miracle, but to actually plug into the mass consciousness of humanity and change that mass consciousness. This was their work. So Sri Aurobindo and the Mother in this dual avatar, Sri Aurobindo connects, draws down this higher consciousness, and the Mother plugs into the whole community, collective of humanity. And what Sri Aurobindo creates is then transmitted through her, and through her this whole lifting movement is done. And Mother has described this movement in many very interesting passages, where she says what it meant to lift humanity in this way. When they are doing this, the burden is now taken by them, but the resistance of humanity determines how much that burden actually is felt by them and how far they can take it. There comes a point where humanity actually says, this much and no more, we don't want more. At that point you cannot compel, because the whole fundamental of the spiritual evolution is freedom. To the extent humanity allows, the Mother is able to lift and help assist that transformation. To the extent it refuses, they have to say, that's about it. Because if they push beyond that, it will snap, it will break humanity. And it may lead even to cataclysmic situations. There's even a point where Sri Aurobindo, the Mother speaks about this. She says, there was a point of transition where if the supramental consciousness had come prematurely, the earth itself would have broken, shattered. And so, that's why the necessity to build these gradations, and this was the work which was done, which I mentioned earlier about the overmental group that was formed to create a hierarchy in between, so that the highest consciousness coming had gradations through which it could imprint into the earth. So the question really comes to this. For themselves they could have done it, and they have said it, and they have demonstrated also. But when it came to their real work, which was to lift humanity, they could only take it as far as humanity was willing and capable at that point. Beyond the point, the Mother says, Sri Aurobindo's presence itself was creating such a huge resistance that it was better for him to leave the body. The resistance had aligned itself so strongly against. And so the decision was made for him to leave. Then as far as it comes to the fact itself of how far humanity could be taken, it was taken sufficiently far that the supramental consciousness is now an active force in human evolution, whether we like it or not, whether we participate or not. And if you look at this point alone, their work is more than completed. The supramental is an active force. You do nothing, it will still compel the evolution and prevent extreme catastrophes. But they did something more. I had in fact intended to mention this tomorrow, but Sri Aurobindo created something which he called the mind of light. This was not necessary at all. Having got the supramental in, the work is done. The rest will happen. He created the mind of light. The question he raised was, does this mean that until the supramentalization of the mind takes place, your mind will remain always an instrument of ignorance? In which case, for us to experience divine life, well, we have to wait until we get to supramentalization, from their divinized mind. He says, is there any way the mind as it is within its limitations, as a finite instrument, can it be sufficiently divinized that it becomes an instrument of the divine consciousness, and we can live a divine life with this mind without reaching the supramental? And he explains this. These are all part of his last 4 months before he left his body in his writings. He explains the formation of this mind of light, which he created in himself, organized it in himself, finding a grade of mental consciousness in which the intuition and the supermind could actually enter, fill it with a light while still being an instrument of finiteness, and thereby permit us as we are today, without reaching the full supramental, to experience a divine life on earth already. Now this is one of the most extraordinary achievements in human history spiritually. And this is done by Sri Aurobindo alone. Nobody else has ever done something like this. It's the equivalent of saying to a monkey, well, eventually you will grow up to be a human mind, but through a few million years, the mind will get organized as an organ. What Sri Aurobindo is doing, let's say at the monkey level, he organizes in himself the full mind consciousness and then imprints the fully formed organ directly into the monkeys. That's what he did with us monkeys. So he creates this mind of light within himself, and mother says, I saw him building it, but he wouldn't give it to me. And when it was time for him to leave the body, she says he just transferred the whole thing into her and then threw her into the whole collective humanity. At least starting with those who were immediately around. And this is the most extraordinary gift that he has given to humanity, the result of which, and you have to read what he says, the implication of this, the mind of light itself is a progressive consciousness. It can rise from intuition all the way to the supramental. It's under formation in humanity today, and there are individuals in which you can glimpse it already beginning to form sufficiently clearly. But this forming in us allows us now to begin to live in a consciousness that is entirely, purely open to the divine. Of course, it's prone to error to the extent that it is a finite consciousness, but we can live the divine life here on earth in this human body with this mind because of this intermediate framework which he has called the mind of light. And so this is a gift. It was not even required. This is an extraordinary gift. Not only they have completed their work as far as humanity would allow, but they have established already the supermind, which was their main work, but they have also built this mind of light which allows us anywhere in humanity. You don't have to be a disciple of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. I've met people in whom I've been able to recognize that formation. One such, if you're interested, is Charles Eisenstein. He's an extraordinary writer. And he has this thing already under formation. There are a few others. And you can see it's happening, it's forming in people in spite of us. And what an extraordinary gift. So not only they completed their work, they did much more than what was their initial mission, and the result is inevitable now. Does that satisfy? Perfect.
I'll just end with a few words, continuing on with what Sraddhalu has said. According to George Van Vrechem, who had studied the Mother and the agenda very deeply, there will be a series in the evolution of progressive suram, Mother called it. The suram, the man on the way to the supramental. And we will see many of them, especially in our children, in our lives. The second thing I wanted to add was that when Sri Aurobindo left, Mother worked for 23 years on the transformation of the body. And she found a mind of the cells. And in that mind of the cells, some of them agreed to be transformed. Others did not agree. But those that Mother transformed, she said, anyone in the world who was open could receive those transformed cells.
So let's have a few minutes of silence and then we discuss.